Okay? Internal control procedures. Let's talk about some of these. What we want to do is we want to hire competent, reliable, and ethical personnel. Hiring someone who's competent would mean that if we're looking to hire an accountant, we want to make sure that they have the right educational requirements, like a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. We want to make sure that they're reliable, so we would do a background check their credit, make sure that they're the right fit for a company, make sure they don't have any record. We also want to make sure that they're ethical. Also, we want to make sure that our employees understand what their assignment of responsibilities are. You are in charge of booking transactions. You are in charge of preparing the financial statements. You don't have any control over areas such as purchasing or hiring of employees. You want to make sure that as a business, your employees understand what their responsibilities are. Next, there's separation of duties. We want to make sure that our operations of business are separate from the recording function of accounting. We want to separate the business operations from the recording or the accounting function. Okay? We also want to make sure that there's a separation of the custody of assets from the accounting area, meaning that if you've got custody of the assets and you have control over the accounting records, then that would definitely be a weakness of internal control. You're opening yourself up to the fact that your employees may or may not be manipulating the accounting records. The next bullet point, we have audits. These are independent reviews of the financial statements as well as the internal control system. What happens during an audit is that the auditors test the system of internal control to make sure it's operating as it has been prescribed. Next, we have the documents. These provide the details of transactions. For example, if you were purchasing supplies, you would have a purchase order, you would get an invoice from the supplier, and you would use these records or documents to detail and back up the transaction that you would be journalizing and posting to the ledger accounts. Another internal control procedure are electronic devices. Electronic devices could be used at the retail level for high-end items like leather jackets or expensive clothing. These are used at the retail level to protect the merchandise inventory. Also, electronic devices could be documents or digital storage devices to protect the records of the company. A lot of companies are storing their digital records off-site. This is known as cloud computing. Other internal control procedures we can have might be fireproof vaults to store important documents, alarms and security cameras, loss prevention specialists. These are people that are walking around retail establishments undercover. They look like regular shoppers. Bonded employees are people who the company takes an insurance policy out against to prevent loss of assets. A bonded employee is someone where the company gets an insurance policy on them so that if that employee does steal, then the company can go to the insurance company and collect the monies that were lost. Also, part of a good internal control system would be mandatory vacations. If people are mandated to take a vacation, then that way we ensure that no one is in control of any one area for continuous periods of time. If someone was stealing from a company and they went on vacation, the chances might the chances that something might pop up that would call management's attention to what the employee was doing. Job rotation is the last area of controls. If you have a large warehouse operation with a lot of merchandise or a lot of inventory, you might want to rotate people around the warehouse area so no one person has control over the company's assets for prolonged periods of times. So those are just some controls that organizations have in place over their assets.